Good evening. Tonight we're talking about being at the heart of the universe, which is an interesting topic because not everybody's certain what we mean by it. It's a topic that John introduced in his talk last month, and it's important because in that talk he helped us to differentiate between being at the heart of our universe and being at the heart of the universe. Hi Orla, Anita, Cynthia, Sonia, Amanda, Marianne. Good to have you join us again. And interesting because until early afternoon we had no internet. I wasn't even certain if this talk was going to occur. Amazing when you stand at the heart of the universe, what can be achieved even with technology. So hi Glynis, hi Haresh. Let's look at standing at the heart of the universe. John talks about it from the perspective of how that determines who we are. Hi Yvonne, Karen. Good to have you join us. If we're standing at the heart of our universe, everything is about us. Everything that occurs, we interpret in relationship to who we are, what we want to accomplish, what our fears, our doubts, our hopes and our dreams are. We put ourselves and our concerns at the center of the universe. It's the most important thing. The universe is a big place. When you look at our planet in relationship to the universe as a whole, you have to look really hard to see it. So if you take that a stage further and think about ourselves, so many of us on this planet, so tiny, we're not really that significant to the universe as a whole, except when we align with all that is, and that's the difference. So I've had a few questions and I'd like to answer those questions from people that have asked who've read John's talk and who want a little bit of clarification. Juliet actually asked, what is the heart of the universe? From an esoteric perspective, the heart of the universe is the central sun. It's the source of all life, the all that is, whatever term you want to give to it. It's the origin even of the Big Bang. It's where everything came forth and it's still coming forth. So the heart of the universe is the energy of love that is going out into the world, because our universe is a universe of love, unconditional love, not personal love. And she asks, what is our connection and relationship with it? How can we more deliberately connect with it? What's the purpose, benefit of doing so? Well, our connection and relationship to it is we're all part of the universe. It's part of us, we're part of it. It's a macrocosm and the microcosm. It's our purpose for being. If we connect to the universal energy, we connect to openness, expansiveness. Hi Clara, hi Lane. We connect to kindness and harmlessness. We go beyond our own concerns and we look at a bigger picture of something in which we can play a small but significant role towards achieving a greater good. So from my perspective, when I talk about connecting to the universe, I'm not talking about connecting to planets and galaxies and stars and asteroids. I'm talking about connecting to the energy which birthed the universe. The energy of light, the energy of love. And by being willing to practice coming from a point of light and of love, that develops my connection to that energy. The more that I stand in that light and in that love, the stronger my connection becomes. Hi Caroline, Hi, Andy. Why do we do so? Because we can. There are many that don't. There are many that don't care whether they're connected to the heart of the universe. That's not their purpose. That's not their focus. It's not why they incarnated. That would be something different. Our purpose, those of us who are seeking spiritual truths, is to connect to that energy and to embody it in a physical body, in a physical planet, so that we can experience unconditionality in a conditional world and learn from it, learn and grow. And because we learn and grow, we help everyone else to learn and grow also. Juliet asks, what's the connection between the heart of the planetary being, the heart of our physical being, the heart of our divine essence, and the heart of our universe? In actual fact, there are two distinct lines of energy here. So the universe connects to our essence, which comes down through our soul to our personality. That's one line. Universe connects to the planetary being, the archangelic kingdom, and comes down energetically through to the planet and to mass consciousness. So basically, there are two different things operating here. And for us, the more we can work in collaboration with the energy of the planetary being and the solar logos, the more we align to the big picture and not to our own small picture. So thanks for asking those questions, Juliet, because they're very good. Orla says, John talks a little about gossip and how we are not standing in our light if we're standing and gossiping with another. Well, we're not, because gossip is never kind. Gossip says, did you hear about so-and-so? And did you know what was happening? And what that does is gives that person the opportunity to feel a little bit higher, stronger, more spiritually connected. There's all manner of reasons. When we gossip, we come from a point of inadequacy, which leads us to feel more adequate because we're pointing out something about someone else that isn't as good as it could be, should be, ought to be, must be. So gossip takes us out of our light and takes us into darkness. If we find ourselves with people who are gossiping, Ola asks, what do we do? If we don't want to be part of it, do we ask them to stop? No. If you are with a group of people who are gossiping and you don't feel comfortable there, then you simply say to them, look, I'm not comfortable with this conversation. It's not really where I want to be or what I want to talk about. So I'm just going to leave and I'll talk to you about something else another time. You don't judge, because if you stand in judgment of them, you're doing what they're doing by gossiping. And that's not about the heart of the universe. That's not about the bigger picture. And it's certainly not about kindness, which is what spirituality is all about. So I hope that clarifies that, Ola. And yes, Anita, gossip does equal judgment. Hi, Sarupa, glad you could join us. Ola goes on to say, is there a habit we can practice to help us to see those we disagree with and those whose views are opposite to ours as equal and essential and important to the whole, instead of seeing them as the enemy? Well, if we see them as the enemy, we're not standing at the heart of the universe, we're standing at the heart of our universe. For me, there was a poet who wrote a good few hundred years ago. His name was John Donne, and one of his particular poems, he uses a phrase, no man is an island. And he goes on to say, never send for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. It's a powerful poem, and I would recommend that it's something that perhaps would be good for everybody to look at occasionally, just to remind ourselves we are all interconnected. John talks about, Ola says, the power of unconditional love, how it creates, sustains, never ends. For those listening tonight who may not have heard the talk, can you expand a little on what he said? Basically, what he's saying is that when we stand in unconditional love, we accept the past, we embrace the present, and we look to the future inspired by what is possible, what we might create, what we might become. Accepting the past doesn't mean to say that we condone our past. That's two different things. Acceptance of our past says, this happened. Where's the gift for me? Where was the opportunity for learning? How could I take that, bring it into the present to see how it's helped me to be who I am now, and then use it to go forward into the future? Okay, Glynis says, John says the essential you is that part of you which has the ability to live at the heart of the universe, has the ability from that place and space to transmit to you the loving thoughts, promptings, ideas to enable you to move forward. And Glynis asks, what helped me? What one thing helped me most in terms of the capacity to love without condition? Basically, accepting that we are all part of a bigger whole. In the 7 spiritual truths, those of you that did it, we looked at karma. We looked at how our karma is part of our family's karma, is part of our city's karma, our nation's karma, etc. On and on and on. And even that we carry some of our master's karma. In other words, it's like the Russian dolls, one inside another. And Anna mentioned this in the Phoenix Rising group. One inside of another, inside of another. There's no separation. Our mind tries to separate in order to understand, but at a spiritual level, nothing is separate. So if I'm part of something that I judge to be negative, then what's my role in that? If I judge somebody, I'm denying that I'm part of that energy. But if I'm aware of it, if it's getting my attention, there's a message there for me. The more I can look at somebody else and say, there but for the grace of God, go I'm more open and accepting. And it's not always easy. You know, there are times that things happen, people upset us, but they upset us because at a bigger picture level, there's something we need to see and we need to change. And this is an opportunity for us to look at it and do something with it. So, thanks for asking that, Glynis. She goes on to say, patience. What's the number one tip to develop patience? Is it simply letting go of expectations and letting things be? It's knowing that if I've done the bits that I need to do and I hand it over to Spirit, whatever needs to occur will then occur in the time that's the most beneficial for the highest good of everyone. Whereas if I think it needs to happen now because time's passing and I really want to get on with things, I'm thinking about me. When we practice patience, we're acknowledging that we don't know the whole picture. We only see this bit, which is the bit that we're able to see, but we don't see the rest of it. The more we can be patient, the more we can see other things that in our impatience we might never have recognized or noticed. So I don't hold expectations. I'm very clear in what I understand my guidance is saying to me. I take the steps that I can take, and then I step back and say, okay, show me, and we see what happens next. So it can be a challenge when our emotional body wants it and wants it now. It's a bit like feeding babies on demand. Glynis goes on to say, talking about growth and expansion, John says spiritually, it's the lack of perfection that enables you to see without judgment what else there is that you can grow and expand. Is he referring here to the gift in our perceived weaknesses, which in fact may be our greatest strengths? It's not so much that, although that is true. It's more that When we try to be perfect, Spirit's not invited. It's about us. We don't live in a perfect world. We are never going to be perfect in this world at this time. And so if we strive to make things perfect, we're stepping away from Spirit and we're stepping into our mind. Perfection is the issue, the biggest issue which blocks our growth. The need to be perfect, the need to get it right, because that puts us at the center of our universe. It doesn't put us at the center of the universe. And yes, Anita, perfect does seem boring. Okay, thanks, Glynis. Bronwyn says that John talked about 2018 being a year of darkness. What made it so in particular? Because 2018 was about power. It wasn't intended to be, but it became about power. It became about saber rattling. Who had the biggest army? Who had the biggest trade deficit? Who had this? Who had that? It was all about power. And it was about the love of power, not the power of love. When the love of power is the focus, then what happens is the planet gets darker. Because love of power is personality. When the power of love is the focus, then the planet gets brighter. Because that is what universal energy is all about. The power of love. So, control and power gave us an opportunity last year when we saw what was happening on the big stage with the different leaders and what they were claiming, and corporations, not just people. It gave us an idea. If we became indignant about something, what's the emotional charge there? Why did we become indignant? Is there something within us from the past that we needed to look at, and that's why it resonated in that way? What was it telling us about us that we could look at, understand and accept, so that we bring that into the present as a strength and not as a weakness? When we do that, then we resolve our own unresolved issues as individuals, and then our energy, our frequency, sends out a different signal which empowers the whole. Karen asked, how do we cultivate generosity of spirit? What is generosity of spirit? Well, I'd turn those two around. The first one is, what is generosity of spirit? And once we understand what it is, then we can look at how we cultivate it. And I would suggest that there's probably a variety of different interpretations for generosity of spirit. So I'll just share what mine are. Kindness, harmlessness, and acceptance. And I guess they became clear for me when we did the truths. Because for me, the 7 spiritual truths lay out a path for being someone who stands in the generosity of spirit all the time. We don't stand in judgment, we stand in acceptance. We accept who we are, therefore we can accept all that is. And when we stand in acceptance, we're harmless in what we do, we don't judge. So generosity of spirit means that we can see someone without judging them, and we can look at if and how we're seeing them because we're there to assist them, or because they're there to show us something that we may not have realized. And it doesn't have to be a negative, it can be a positive about ourselves. So Karen goes on to say, what is generosity of spirit and how do we have that and boundaries also? Well, I don't see them as exclusive of each other. We can have generosity of spirit and still have very clear boundaries. She says it's not about giving everything away. No, that's true. Ideas, concepts, advice. For example, when people ask for free advice, how do we handle that? And it is a tricky one. It's surprising how many people have a belief that if you're spiritual, you should do everything for free. You should give everything away. Well, should is a mental construct. And if you're giving everything away, you're not respecting who you are, and you're not respecting the people that you're giving it to by expecting from them, and I'm aware I say the word expecting, a return of energy. Generosity of spirit doesn't have a condition from the perspective of, if I do this, you must do that. But it does have a core that says, in standing in who I am, my boundaries empower who I have come to be. If I drop my boundaries, if I give everything away, what I'm teaching people is to take. I'm teaching them to demand as much as they want. Again, we come back to that feeding on demand. I'm not teaching them to respect me or the quality of what I have to offer. And I'm not teaching them, therefore, to respect themselves and what they have to offer. So giving everything away for free isn't actually a spiritual quality, it's a personality need to be liked. Saying no isn't always easy, but when you say no, you learn to respect yourself, and people learn to respect you too. It's the same as the burst that's sent forth unconditionally, Anita says. That's absolutely true. But it's about acknowledgement. If you've worked hard to do something and you just give it to anybody and everybody who asks, how do you know that they're accepting it with the value of the work you've put into it, or they're simply taking it because it's free and they can? How do you know that, in fact, that person needs that? They may not. They may think they do, but they may not. How they handle you will be as a consequence of how you handle yourself. So if you respect who you are and what you offer, other people will, or they'll go somewhere else and they'll find someone else. And that's fine, because it means that they weren't resonating with you in the first place. And the final thing about giving it all away is that ultimately it leads to burnout. We give so much, we've got nothing left for ourselves. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. Clara said, the heart of the universe, John said that the heart of the universe is the void. Could you explain more about the void, how it is? That's a huge topic, and in actual fact, I'm going to give you a sneak preview. John talks about that more next month. So I'm going to leave that question, Clara, until next month, and it will be the first question on the list that we talk about. Because she wants to know about the vibration, and is it the same as the status of emptiness described in Buddhism? It is and it isn't. There are similarities, yes, but as with all things, there are different ways of looking at things, different perceptions. So I'm going to leave that until we do our Facebook Live next month. The final question, unless anybody else is thinking of any more questions as we're talking, as a result of what's been said, the final question comes from... Oh no, wait a minute. There's two questions, I beg your pardon. Bronwyn had a final question. How, in shifting the energy intent within me, does that impact the people whom I may have manipulated last year? Does it? Can we change, heal the past by our current state? Not just for ourselves, but all those affected by the energy. Yes, we can. As we shift and change, because we have a connection to those people, even if it's not current, as we shift and change, unless there's been a total disconnect spiritually on energetic levels, they will shift and change too, one way or the other. As we shift and change, and expand our energy, we create an opportunity for others to do the same. If the energy is totally disconnected, then it's not a direct line to that person, but that person is still going to be affected because our impact changes the frequency, which has an impact on mass consciousness. If we shifted and changed and it had no impact on mass consciousness, there'd be no point in shifting and changing, because how are we going to make a difference? One person can make a huge difference in the world. So changing ourselves offers an opportunity for others to do the same. So I hope that clarifies that one for you, Bronwyn. Sarupa says, when does sacrifice begin and selflessness end? And that's an interesting one. Selflessness ends when we believe we have to sacrifice for someone else's outcome. And that's an interesting one. If Spirit says to us to give up something in order for someone else to move forward, or to offer something in order for someone else to move forward, that's one thing. But if we believe, because this person's struggling, we feel sorry for them, that we have to play small in order for them not to feel awkward or less, that's got nothing to do with Spirit, and that's got everything to do with our judgments of ourselves and those around us. Selflessness isn't about sacrifice. There is no sacrifice in selflessness. Selflessness says, I am a vehicle through which Spirit operates for the greater good of all. And Spirit never sacrifices. When I feel I have to do something, because if I don't do it, someone else is going to suffer, then I'm sacrificing based on my personality, and I'm certainly not thinking of their highest good, or the fact that perhaps by not offering it, they might recognize that they can do something for themselves. Sacrifice tends to be emotionally driven. It can be mentally driven. If you've been brought up to believe that you're strong, other people are weak, and you have to sacrifice yourself to take care of those that are weaker than you, then it's mental. It's still not Spirit, because Spirit doesn't see people as less or more. Spirit sees us all as equal, and we are. So I hope that clarifies that one also, Sarupa. Elaine says, in connecting to our hearts, we can sense energy. Very true. Is this the energy of the heart of the universe? When we stand in our heart, connecting through our heart to our soul, and through the soul to the essence, we are connecting to the heart of the universe. In fact, John gave an exercise in one of the talks about doing exactly that and feeling who we are in that space as different to who we are in our normal waking consciousness. And there's a huge difference. If we only practice that each day, our vibration would shift and we would certainly grow and expand. Sonia says, is it okay to want to get some positive feedback from others for the work we do? And I've still not worked out how to get to see more on this. I can't see it. As long as we don't, I can't read the rest of it, Sonia. If you could put the rest in another little message, I'd appreciate it. If you want positive feedback from others, that's your personality. There's nothing wrong with a personality wanting to know if you've done a good job or a bad job, because that's how we describe it to ourselves. If I'm going to do this, I want to know I've done a good job, and I'm going to ask so-and-so, did they enjoy it? Did they get what I was trying to do? There's nothing wrong with that. However, thanks, Sonia. So as long as we don't treat it as the reason for our work, very true. That's one thing. But the other thing is this: if you're doing a good job, if you are working for Spirit in the way that Spirit is working with you, if you're in partnership, then if you're not fulfilling that partnership, Spirit will show you. Spirit will create a situation. So for example, you might be doing a reading for somebody, and you will give them some information, and then at the end of the reading you might ask them, could they relate to what you were saying? And that person might say no. And that's a bit of a shock, because you feel you're connected and you've done the best that you can, and they can't relate to it. It could be because they genuinely can't. In my experience, people do tend to be quite literal and interpret according to events that are around them at the time. It may be that they genuinely don't relate to what you're saying, at which point you don't tell yourself you're doing it wrong. When you've got the chance, you go into meditation and you ask why this occurred. Why is this person not able to relate to what you've said? And you know, there's always a reason, and it's never that you're doing a bad job. But if you want to get feedback, and as a means to build your confidence initially, go for it. If you're still needing feedback after you've been doing it for a little while, then you're not connecting to Spirit, and it's become about you as the center of the universe. Yes, Sarupa, sacrifice creates a win-lose and not a win-win. Somebody has to lose when there's a sacrifice. Spirit's always looking for win-win. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's talk. If you've got any comments to make, pop them into the Facebook page, or even go into the Phoenix Rising group and we can have a bit more of a discussion about it. I'm open to anything. But thanks very much. The questions have been fantastic, and I'm definitely keeping Clara's for the first one for next month's. And I'll talk to you all then. So take care, and we'll meet in the ethers. Bye.